Hey everyone, this is Babu Dahal. In this video, I'm trying to explain some of the key concepts of economic and political philosophies. Since economy is all about people, let's start with an individual. If there is an individual on an island, then there is no need for all of this since he or she can do anything they want. But as soon as the second person lands on the island, then that changes the whole dynamic. So now it becomes a society. Then they would have both a private life and a public life. Now the private side, it is motivated by incentive and bias. Incentive if there is money involved, and bias if there is emotion involved. On the public side, it's motivated by reward and punishment. You get rewarded if you add value to society, and if you take some value away from the society, then you get punished. Now on the private life, it's defined by what is called the natural law, which is the law that defines the basic human rights even before a government is created. So the basic principles of libertarianism is defined by the fundamental human right is to live your life as you choose, as long as you don't infringe on the equal rights of others. Now that's the very first step, right? So you defined what is the fundamental principle of a society. Then, since it defines about it, it talks about rights. Now we need to define what are those rights. So here there's three basic human rights: the life, liberty, and property. And there's a reason I flipped these two, so we can categorize everything that comes afterwards within these three basic human rights. So I like to define each of these philosophies with basic words, so it's easier to understand and explain. So on the libertarianism, what it basically means, it's all about rights, and how do you define rights? So I like to define that as power to dispose. Now coming back to the three basic human rights on the life, I have defined it as, like, break it down into three parts: body, time, and labor. So body, that falls within the property, and time and labor that falls within the money, which we later explain here. Now when we come to property, the key question is, why do we even need to define property as basic human rights? And the reason is because of its scarcity. So any property, even the life falls within that property. That's why they say self-ownership. So because of its scarcity, we have to define that as a basic human right, so it doesn't get infringed upon. The third aspect is the liberty. So it means basically free to choose what you believe is right for you and your family. So now that we have these three basic human rights, the next question is, how do we protect these rights? And hence comes the part of government. So the only role of government is to protect people's rights, which are defined up here. So basically, a government is an agreement to protect life, liberty, and property. So under the life, we have the safety. Under property, we have security, and under liberty, we have adjudicating disputes. So basically, safety from people within the country, which is policing; security from threat outside the country, army; and adjudicating disputes whenever there is any dispute among two individuals. So that defines the power part. So the public part, it categorizes into power and the market. So the power is defined in the form of government, and the market is defined in the form of whether capitalism, socialism, or communism. So capitalism, I've defined it as a competition. So if there is a healthy competition, then that society might incline towards more capitalism. So under the life part, so we have the labor. Under the property we have production, and again under the liberty we have the distribution. So under labor there's the division of labor plus wage. So what's the division of labor? It defines your labor based on your skill, and getting paid based on your skill set or value you provide based on that skill. So if you are good at picking apple, then you might your value might be defined by your skill of being able to pick the apples on top of the tree. If somebody is good at collecting apples from the ground, then their skill might be defined by their skill of collecting apples on the ground and being paid based on that. So there is a competition of labor as well. On the production side, so the means of production is privately owned. So the apple farm could be privately owned, and there could be many farms like that, and hence there exists a competition in the market. On the distribution side, so if those apples are distributed from the within the free market environment without any restrictions and healthy competition in the distribution as well, then that falls within the capitalism. On the socialism, so this is defined, usually I like to define with single word, but unfortunately I was not able to find any single word to define socialism, so I chose big government. And big is a relative term, so depending on the size of the government, socialism can be of various forms. On the labor side, we still have the same division of labor and wage, but on the means of production, majority of the means of production is government owned, and hence there is less competition because government is a monopoly. On the distribution, the value created by the society is distributed based on their effort. On the communism, this is defined as classless because that was the primary goal of communism, was to eliminate classes within the society among the people. On the labor, we have equal liability of all to work. Under the means of production, it's community owned majority, and under the distribution, the value of the society is distributed based on need. Now within the market we have the economy, which is basically the combination of wealth and resources. Wealth is asset minus liabilities, so the wealth could be of an individual or of a nation. Resources, we have human resources and capital resources, and both of these tied up to money, which is basically the unit of labor. Now you might say, what is the difference between capital and money? Capital is basically money that produces more money. Now by unit of labor, I mentioned earlier, this time and labor is tied up to the money. So basically money is a means of exchange of labor. So let's suppose if you own an apple that costs $1, then basically what you have is you're exchanging $1 of your labor for, let's say, 1 cent of labor of 100 other peoples who created that apple. In other context, let's say if you have $10, and if my rate of labor is $10 an hour, then you basically own an hour of my labor. So basically it's how the value of your labor gets moved in the market. Now here I have listed out some of the key points within different economic and political philosophies. And here on the bottom left, I have tried to extend what is called the Nolan's chart, where he basically defines the power and market of society. So the power could go from totalitarianism to individualism, and market based on personal freedom and economic freedom could go from communism, socialism to capitalism. And that is all for today. Thank you.